It's my privilege to extend you a hearty welcome to this 144 webinar conducted by Philosophy Family. Friends, during the corona pandemics, we started conducting webinar with our teacher, Professor Prafulla Kumar Mahapatra sir, as the first speaker of Philosophy Family on 28th July 2020, perhaps 9 months before. And friends, today is the 131st session of our webinar series, and it's a great journey for all of us. This journey of academic family has been possible because of all our senior teachers, scholars, and who has organized and who has taken an innovative attempt to organize all the webinars of Philosophy Family. We must record its novel attempt and relate motive. Today, we have invited to our teacher and to the teacher of teachers and one of the senior professors of our country, Professor P.K. Mahapatra sir, to today's webinar. I bow down before him as a mark of hearty welcome to this program. Today, I can see the faces of many senior professors of our country. I bow down my head before them. Today, Professor P.K. Mahapatra will speak on the theme, One Life is Enough. It's a very beautiful topic. This topic will be focused on the reflections on the doctrine of karma. This is a unique topic where the speaker happens to be very optimistic in his philosophical reflection. Where most of the scholars tend to speak that one life is not enough, Professor P.K. Mahapatra dares to say that one life is enough. But prior to the talk of Professor P.K. Mahapatra, let me speak a few words on his academic pursuits. Professor P.K. Mahapatra has a brilliant academic record throughout. He did his MA from Utkal University with the gold medal, and Dr. P.K. Mahapatra did his PhD from the University of Calais, England in 1978, being selected as a Commonwealth Scholar under the supervision of Professor Richard G. Schoenberg. Professor P.K. Mahapatra sir retired as a Professor of Philosophy from Utkal University, where he taught more than 35 years in the PG department, and his interests were teaching, research, academic, administration, student management, cultural, intellectual events, and many more things. Soon after his retirement, he was assigned as a senior fellow of Indian Council of Philosophical Research from perhaps October 2002 to September 2004. Being a specialist in the philosophy of mind and philosophy of values, he has authored a couple of books entitled Personal Identity, Concepts and Problems. Professor Mahapatra, to his credit, has edited many books, and prominent among them Social Justice, Purusharthas and Perspectives in Analytic Philosophy. And he has many contributions to the philosophical world. A good number of his articles have been published in reputed journals of philosophy in India and abroad. Dr. Mahapatra was the Vice Chairman of Indian Philosophical Congress from 1994 to 1997, and he was also the general president of All Orsa Philosophy Association in 1998. He was also the executive president of AOPA for many years. Now he is acting as the advisor of AOPA. Professor Mahapatra was the general editor of Utkala series in philosophy from 1994 to 2002. But it's not possible to reflect upon all the contribution to philosophy family and to the philosophical world because of the passage of time. With this, let me call upon Professor P.K. Mahapatra sir, our teacher and teacher of teachers, to start his speech. On this occasion, I would like to invite also, I would like to welcome also our host and convener, Sri Pramod Kumar Das, and our moderator, Dr. K. Umnam Rao, to this webinar. I welcome all the viewers, all the teachers, all the scholars of philosophy across the country, and with this, it's my honor and pride privilege to invite our teacher, Professor P.K. Mahapatra, to start his speech. Over to sir. Over to sir.
Thank you, Kailash. I thank all of you, and particularly on this occasion, I am also thankful to Professor Rama Chakravarti of Calcutta University. In fact, we worked together in England on the same topic with the same supervisor. So that's a unique coincidence. Well, this the title of the topic occurred to me, but partly not entirely because of that, but partly because of a famous book that Kumar Natwar Singh has written. One Life is Not Enough. That is his autobiography. So I'm not going to criticize this. I am only pointing out that this title itself was an inspiration for me to write on this topic, that one life is enough. Now this is in context of the doctrine of karma. Now why do I say this? Because doctrine of karma, as we have been acquainted with in Indian tradition, believes essentially on the possibility of rebirth, because the idea of the law of karma is that the theme is this, that whatever we do it freely, because man is endowed with the freedom of the will. So generally, unless there is some external constraints, we do everything or almost everything freely. Therefore, we are responsible for whatever we do. Hence, as we sow, so we reap. That is a very familiar dictum which summarizes the spirit of the law of karma. But our belief in law of karma has been essentially bound up with the belief in rebirth. Why? Because it happens, or it may so happen, that many of the on many occasions the consequences of our actions we do not enjoy or suffer from. Sometimes we are not rewarded for the good of pleasure or pain. of Bernoulli form. And we can take another example of from Ramayana again, where one person's action, the consequence of one person's action will be enjoyed by many people. By many people in the Balakanda of Ramayana, it is stated that there was neither logical, nor does it stand to reason any reason. Because many people, the people who were benefited were both the virtuous people as well as vicious people. So you cannot say that this their benefit which of the action of Jagata result of their participation, stretching the argument too far. Another example I can say is something what happens in natural calamities. And the entire country, I mean, eastern region, or the tsunami, earthquake, so many things. In natural calamity, many people suffer. And can you say that? Well, there is a, one can generally say that yes, um, this is because of a general breakdown in the sense of value. That is, but that is no explanation. You cannot say that anybody and everybody who suffers consequences, and every such consequence must be enjoyed or suffered from, or that is experienced by the doer. Three, because This assumption is enough may experience the consequences of your actions in a future life. It is a possibility. So why not this possibility? That is the possibility. This is also a possibility. Therefore, it is only the possibility itself is enough to would be act as enough incentive for people being moral. If you leave it, if you leave it to the um, idea of afterlife or another life, several other life, then we may take it easy. Oh, okay, देखा जाएगा. कल किसने देखा है? तो देखा. We'll take it easy and take it easy. Possibility is there in the case of possibility of experiencing the consequence of your action in this life and in the other life. Rather, I should say that the possibility that you may have to experience the results of your action in this life is more important, because whatever happens to us in this life is more important. Man is coward, brave before God, but coward before mankind, coward before the society. So we are very conscious of what others will think about. So this is about this life. What happens in other life, because we can take it easy, as I said, easy in the spirit of देखा जाएगा, in the spirit of possibility. And the idea is in both cases it is the possibility. Nobody gives you guarantee that you will first experience the consequence of action in the next life. Nobody gives the guarantee. Possibility is there, possibility is there. And it is the possibility that you may have to experience the consequences of your actions in this life will make you more confident. And that becomes enough incentive for right conduct. Therefore, and that is why the hormone and we have been simply ignoring it. So what is that in this we can do things that will justify our actions, either good or bad, justify justify our being punished for our bad actions and being rewarded for our good actions. You may not actually be punished or rewarded, but that possibility is there, and that possibility will make you is enough will be enough incentive for one being moral. You can't simply say whatever that your you're experiencing the consequence of a past action is absolutely inevitable. Like as we said in the Mahabharata, that just as the wheel that follows the foot of the ox, or just as a calf seeks its mother in a herd of cows, your past actions will follow you inevitably. That is why you must be born again and again. This is not the explanation. This is not the right explanation. Because if you accept this, if you depend on this, then you will be simply, you may believe this, you may not believe this, or you may be in the state of
Hello, hello. Yes, yes, yes. Audible, audible. Audible.
Hello. Well, thanks so much, Pramod sir.
Again,
Yes, sir.
Prashant?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, it is a question by
Please.
yes, sir. It is a question by Prashant Kumar Aru. He wants to know, I wants to know further on the distinction between distributive morality of karma.
Oh, sorry. What is the distinction between retributive morality and distributive? Or retributive justice and distributive justice? Well, karma, the law of karma is the theory of retributive morality. Retribution means whatever you have done, you must experience the consequence. That is retribution. If you have done something wrong, you must be punished. If you have done something good, you should be rewarded. Distributive justice is something which is related to this, but distributive justice is not concerned with rewards and punishment. Distributive justice is concerned, or we call it distributive morality, is concerned with equal or proportionate distribution of the benefits and burdens of the society. Okay?
Himself to this world and he tries to make more reference to the past and the future. He denies, he's a non-believer and his arguments concentrate on that. Well, I request Professor because last make more reference to the political issue. And I see this lecture would have definitely and hopefully some comments from interest. Yes, sir.
Honest, yes. Please get life.
That's well. So don't say you will for a minute. Then
Am I audible?
you are audible. Well, namaskar.
Namaskar. Now, I-
Yes, yes.
hello.
Sir, go ahead.
Uh, uh,
Yes, go ahead. Ramesh,
sir.
sir, you are audible. I can hear
uh,
you.
so, my point is the concept of past life or future life are only speculations and myths. Man has to live one life, one life. So, this one life is enough in the sense that man has to live one life. Concept of past life or the concept of a future life are only speculations and gross assumptions and myths. That is my conviction. And there is this is not only my conviction, there is sufficient scientific basis behind this idea that man has to live one life. I can explain it, but there is no time. I don't want to go into that. Then I, sir, very humbly, I differ from one point. You said man is naturally moral, but there can be another standpoint that man is basically self-centered and selfish. If we go by the idea of Hobbes, who says man in the state of nature, the life of man in the state of nature is nasty, brutish, selfish, solitary, and short. So it is society, it is education, it is civilization, it is culture that all these things cumulatively make man a moral being. Left to himself, man is basically selfish because every man has his own instincts, and man is most of the time victim to his own instinct unless he is rational and he is guided by moral passion. This is my another point. And my third important point is that every action leads to some consequences. It is true that an action leads to consequences, but a person who does good action or good behavior, not necessarily he is going to be rewarded. Sir gave the example of Ahalya. I can give common example from our life. A
Yes.
surgeon, a surgeon has done maximum operations and has given good result to thousands of people.
Exactly.
So he has helped many people in his good action, but not that he is going to be rewarded by his own action. And similarly, we can take a reverse example as well. Somebody is a good human being, very helping, very cordial, very gentle, but I have seen it in my own life that but in a communal riot he lost all his belongings and throughout his life he suffered. Though he is very innocent, he is very gentle, he is very helping, but in a communal riot he became a victim and he suffered the rest of his life. So not necessarily all good actions lead to good result, but not that the doer will enjoy the good result. And somebody might be good, but he may be victim of different situations. And classic examples are Mahatma Gandhi. He was the gem of a person, but he was killed. And let us take the example of Jesus Christ. He was the finest person humanity has produced, but he was killed. Take the example of Socrates. So many examples can be given who are finest human beings, but they have suffered a lot in their life. And on the contrary, there are many hooligans, many bad people, many scoundrels, but they have enjoyed all their life, This
Yeah.
is by social conditions.
I'm very glad Dhaneshwar accepted my basic position. I mentioned when I talked about man being naturally moral, I also said that I am aware that some people or even many people may not agree with it. It all depends on your attitude about what man is. All case to case, man was politically nasty to and all. That is why. That is why they wanted to sacrifice their privileges and in order for being a government to protect their interests. So they became moral that way. But all right, that is a very controversial issue. It's all a matter of how we believe men to be. But thank you for agreeing with me and supplementing my ideas. Yes. Thank you.
Hello, can I raise a question, please?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. It has been a wonderful talk. Of course, the law of karma is not only retrospective; it is also prospective. And I mean, the concept of rebirth depends a lot on this. Yes, I completely agree with you. And it is also true that we have only one life, and we should make the most of it. That is, we should do all the good deeds, and we should be moral, good, and maybe we will not get what we deserve, even in this life. That is always, there is the possibility, but we should not, we should continue doing that. But one thing I was just, when you talked about that if a person is not conscious, while we are talking about the rewards and punishments, that you brought in our John Locke's example, that if a person is not conscious of what he had done, he should not be punished, which is absolutely, I think it is okay, but because the aim of punishment is not retribution. It's not retribution. It is, the aim of punishment is rather reformation. So for that person, with keeping that in mind, of course, we should not, in a retributive manner, punish someone, but we can also help him in that way if there is evidence that he has done some wrong, that he should be reformed, he should be rehabilitated, isn't it? So I think, just adding to your wonderful talk, it's really very good, and it really boosts up our view that there is only one life, and we should make the most of it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rama. That was wonderful. Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Ranjit. Pramod.
Let him speak.
Listening. Go ahead. Ah, okay. If- Yeah. Yeah. Dhanesh, sir,
Can I
you
say,
want to respond?
sir? Yes,
Yes.
sir. Uh, I should be moral because I am rational. Shall I
Yeah.
think to be irrational? If I cannot think to be irrational, similarly, I cannot think to be immoral.
Great.
Morality is a social obligation because we live in society, because we are human beings, social beings, and we have to depend upon society for for our life. Therefore, we need to be moral because morality is a social necessity and a social obligation. I cannot be antisocial. I cannot be irrational. Therefore, I must be moral. This is my submission. Morality.
It is because
Professor,
morality is a byproduct of human rationality. We are
Professor-
moral, we are rational, therefore we are moral.
Rational, Professor Das, actually, rationality has morality in its backdrop. We need to take that. That is what Dhanesar Sahu sir says. Even Kant has in his exposition clearly made it clear that being rational means being moral. Morality has grounding in rationality. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think yes. Om,
sir,
can I come in here?
Professor Ghosh, please.
Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu has made it very clear that good for the society. This much I would like to add to what Dhaneshwar Sahu had said, but I think he has said it all. Okay, Pramod, anything else you want to say?
Sir, once.
Hello.
Hello,
Yes.
Hello.
Dr. Rao.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
Shall I-
Yes, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Professor Ghosh, welcome,
Hello.
sir.
Shall I speak?
okay.
Okay.
Thank
Sir,
you.
sir, welcome,
Okay.
sir. Welcome.
So I just have one observation just to point out. So should I, if I am allowed, I will tell just a.
Yes, you are allowed.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Allowed, sir. Allowed.
Ranjit, go ahead.
So,
Sir, कोई सा रुसिए रावल
I
बाबू
just,
को
hello.
Yes,
Ask Indra.
Yes.
Okay.
With my due respect to Professor Dhaneshwar sir, Ranjit sir, all my seniors present, and some people are from outside of Odisha. So with my due respect to all of them, I just want to point out one thing. I do not agree with Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu's remark that man is natural brutish, selfish, and like this. So I want to out man is brutish, selfish. At the same time, man is also divine. As man is a rational animal, so both rationality and animality are there in case of man, and in course of time, when man interacts with the society, both the qualities are reflected. So it is not right to say, in my opinion, that man is naturally bronze and man is not naturally divine. So I should point out, I point out that man is both divine and animal from the birth. So that is my submission.
So this is the life, is the life we lead, where the animal tendencies in man need to be converted into the divine possibilities. So this is the life. And Professor Mahapatro, thesis rightly suggests your position too, where we can say, well, both
Yes.
animality and rationality are contained in man, and this is the ground where we can refine, we can move away from the animal possibilities and in search of the divine possibilities, in search of the moral
Yes.
possibilities, and all that is positive and beneficial for the society. And that's why the thesis of Professor Mahapatro stands that that life one life is enough, at least from the sociological point of view. Thank you. Now, good discussion. Now we have Professor Ghosh. He wanted to say something. Let me invite Professor Ghosh for making his observations.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. Professor Mahapatra, my teacher, he has given a very nice lecture on this thing, law of karma, and by saying that one life is enough. Now, what I want to say is this: if one life is enough, then the discussion of law of karma will not come into the picture at all, because we will be talking with this life. Conversely, if you start with law of karma, you find three types of karmas. One is sanchita, and one is prarabdha, and one is agama. And this agama karma is also sanctified by the sciences, scientific enterprise. That means our own action can be justified with our justified or proved to be wrong from our agama karmas. So there is no problem from the point of view science and rationality, so far as agama karma or what we are going to do and what result it will bring. There is no such problem. But the other two types of karmas, that is sanchita karma and prarabdha karma, actually prarabdha karma actually creates all problem, as Professor Mahapatra has said, that we can link it with the problem of personal identity and others. But one thing I am not getting the answer for myself, that whether we can, if prarabdha, we know what prarabdha is, but can we just close the account of prarabdha only in this life? That is the most vital question. If this life is enough, then, and we discuss prarabdha, and then will it be possible on our part to close the account of prarabdha and start whatever it may be, whether the next life is there or not, we do not know. So what will be the situation? This is my submission, sir.
Over to Professor Mahapatra for the response.
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay. Before coming to Ranjit, I will refer to Sachindra's observation. He made a very good observation that man is both animal and rational. So
Yes.
animal instinct will be there, but rationality will prevail.
Sir.
Added to that, let me tell you, man has two very important features. One is the rationality, and the other is his spiritual faculty. By
Sir.
means of rationality, Sachendra, whatever you
Sir.
said, I want to supplement it. By means
Sir.
of rationality, man is capable of making the distinguishing between right and wrong.
Sir.
And by means of spiritual faculty, man
Sir.
identifies himself with the right and alienates himself with the bad. So that should be my supplementing observation to Sacindra's response. Yes, coming to Ranjit.
Thank you, sir.
In the beginning, that if we do not believe in the afterlife, then there is no law of karma. So we are still in the grip of absolutely strict view of the law of karma. Law of karma. See, I firmly believe that law of karma is a moral law, and no moral law can be absolute. If you take the moral law to be absolute, then you cannot apply them in in the life, because you see, many people have, some of you have cited examples. Dhaneshwara cited example. I have cited example that yes, one ought to experience the consequences of his actions, but from this it doesn't follow that one does experience all the consequences of one's actions. It is very clear, and that is how you have to be. You talk of prarabdha. You see, even Manu has said this, that your prarabdha can be, moderated. If by repentance, by your good actions, subsequent good actions, I emphasize this, subsequent good actions, and your repentance for the bad actions you have performed, and by reading the Shastras. Even Manu has said this. So our culture is a repository of a lot of alternative ideas. Why go and cling to only one side of it? Take the other side, and then you make a rational comparison of the different aspects of your culture, and then make a reasoned judgment. Okay, Ranjit.
The thing is, from your point of view, one life is enough because you hold this materialistic concept of the person.
No.
What about the?
No, it is not a materialistic, Ranjit. I am not a materialist. I am saying that if you take the case of the other life, this is illogical. It is illogical.
Right. Sorry. If that be the case, how do you accommodate this Buddhist memory theorist and others? Because if this life is enough and this life is after we die, that everything finishes. That what goes from here to the next life. So either we have to totally abandon the idea of next life or law of karma, or we have to think that this life is enough.
Yes, this life is enough, because why should you believe in another life which cannot have any logical standing? And Buddhist, you talk of Buddhism, Buddha was a great philosopher, moralist, and he did not want to say that all our moral laws should be absolute. He was conscious of this, and he therefore recommended for this middle path, and that is the greatest virtue of Buddhist philosophy. And we see, talk of memory. What is that memory? He doesn't believe in, they believe in Pranabangavada, momentariness, so nothing remains permanent. So nobody, actually, there is no personal identity, only qualitative identity in the form of not memory, but form of character complexity. That is beside the point. Ranjit, if you take my character and follow it, and people say, he's thinking like then I live in you. That's a different idea, I think, metaphorically speaking. But there is no numerical identity of the person in Buddhism. So far as moral laws are concerned, Buddha was very conscious of this. No absolute standard of morality. Take the middle path. If you describe a principle of morality which no common man can follow, then that is of no use. Buddha said. So there is a lot of things. Our culture is rich with different alternative interpretations. Take the note of it, give note of it, and then compare and contrast and make the reason. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Mahapatra. Well, Bhuneswar Sahu sir wants to make some observation. Well, sir, you are welcome. You are welcome.
Ranjit Babu, the concept of a prarabdha, as you stated, there was a bad design behind constructing the concept of prarabdha. If we read Manu, because to justify untouchability and Sudrahood, he brought this idea. So, to justify that some are basically inferior, some are by birth, they are inferior to others. To justify the caste system and to justify untouchability, to to justify that Sudras should be there. So the whole idea was constructed by Indian thinkers. This is another aspect, the very bad dimension of the concept of Prarabdha. Then,
And Ganesh sir, it is the same
Sir.
Manu who said that if you repent, if you read the Shastra, if you do good action subsequently, then the bad effects of Prarabdha can be effaced. The same Manu said this. Okay, so
then there are contradictions in Manu. There might be.
Yes,
But
he believes and he
then-
doesn't
but-
believe. He believes
Yes,
as well
so-
as he doesn't believe. The
Sud-
idea of Prarabdha.
Shudras have no right to read scripture. Shudras have
Hey.
no right to study scriptures. That is
Yes,
also
not only
Manu's
Shudra.
version.
women will
Women.
not be liberated unless
Yes.
they have to be reborn as men again.
Right.
So many stupid things.
So
Okay. I think.
about Sachi Babu,
Getting lively.
Sachi Babu made an observation. Sachi Babu, I do not mean that man is basically bad. I just quoted the view of Hobbes, who said man is basically instinctive, and as long as instinct dominates over man, man is bad. But man can be good as well. I do agree with you that man has both rationality and animality. I do agree with you.
Okay.
No,
Thank
that
you,
is
sir.
This
when
is your
Hobbes
view,
is
then-
saying about Dhana sir, when Hobbes is talking about this condition, that solitary, poor, nasty animal condition of man, he actually is hypothetically posing before us a state of nature, and that state of nature is very much similar to the rule of the jungles. So he thought that
Yes.
rationality will emerge only when man enters into a contact and comes in closeness to each other, and then only it will be a social formation of rationality, we should say. What Hobbes is thinking about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for the responses over the issue. Whether actually, there is a future life or not is very much debatable. But let us lead a life as if this is the only life, as if this life is enough, and
Yeah.
make the use of this life so that we can turn into good beings, good human beings, and serve the society in the best possible way. This is the only thing that we can do. Whether there is future life or not, that is a matter of debate, and it belongs to the sphere of the unknowable. So we should not ponder too much on that. We are given with this life. Enjoy this life, lead a good life, and also see that others also lead a good life along with your own life. So this makes our life complete, and hopefully we all understand this to make our society very peaceful to live in. So we should not think of others, what our position. We should come out of this hot position. We should not think of our own selfish interest. We need to come out of our selfish interest in favor of the interests of the society, in favor of the interests of the others. This is the way we interact with the society in the best possible way. That is all we can do to lead a life in best possible way, thinking that this life is the only life that we have got with us. Thank you very much, sir, for the various responses. But there is one good question in the chat box that I see from Shravani Mishra. She links this debate and this entire lecture with the workplace ethics. She finds some sort of problem in the workplace. She knows what is good or bad. An employee knows what is good or bad, wants to implement the good practices in the office situation, but there are people around with the different tendencies who do not either cooperate with the good ethics in the office, or they do not support a good work atmosphere, a cordial work atmosphere. So whether, because if you go by what is right, you are not given the scope, so you are carried away with the general tendencies of wrong practices. So how do you see whether we can change this work culture, whether we can change the workplace ethics? And as he makes a pause there, how do you see how to improve the workplace situation, taking into consideration the negative consequences, the negative like-minded people, the self-centric people. So your response, sir. And see at the end he says whether taking all these factors, even though you want to do the good, you want to do the good, so whether this life is enough. So please, sir, your response.
Okay, okay. Shravani, it's a good question. It relates to the problem about, we know, most of us know what is right and what is wrong. Most of us know what is dharma and what is adharma. But strangely, many people do not want to do the right thing, and some people would like to engage in doing the bad things. The same thing that which Duryodhana also boastfully said, and I think that applies to many of us. Janami dharma, natame prakriti, janamya dharma, natame nivruti. I know what is dharma, what is right. I know what is adharma, what is wrong. But I do not have the inclination to do the right thing, and I cannot disengage myself from the bad thing. So this is what is called. This is where we say that the man is acting against his best judgment. Why do I say this? This is weakness of the will. The man is acting against his best judgment. He knows what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing, but he goes against it. That is the weakness of the will, and that can happen. That can be erased by trying to teach him. Ethics can be taught, morality can be taught. So you apply the principles of ethics and teach them, and gradually this idea of people's acting against their best judgments will be minimized. It may not be totally erased, but it can be minimized. Shravani, that is my response to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your response. And it was a very good lecture. The discussions are equally good, and a lot of things came from the discussion. But still, one thing is from the compliment by Deepak Kumar Behera, and he writes, "Jindagi na milegi dobara." Okay, one life is enough. Make the best use of it. So it's a very good compliment at the end. So "Jindagi na milegi dobara." तो जिंदगी
Make the best of it now.
है, उसको ठीक से जीना है, औरों को ठीक से जीना सिखाना है. So we need to happy, but at the same time think of the happiness of others. So अगर ये हम कर सकते हैं, तो शायद एक अच्छी दुनिया की कल्पना हम कर सकते हैं. Thank you, sir. Very good lecture this one, and it's for the pleasant evening with lot of intellectuals getting in together with their ideas. The debate was really good, and lot of things I personally think I have got, and I hopefully all the participants might have been definitely be benefited by the talk of Prafulla Mahapatra sir, the duality in the talk, a new direction to the thought process. In response to the book by Kumar Natwar saying that one life is not enough, sir has made out his mind known. One life is enough, because we don't pass in the future, and very nicely he has tried to defend the thesis, and a lot of things came in the process. So thankful to you, sir. Grateful to you, sir. Very nice lecture, sir. I think everybody has enjoyed. I really enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Hello.
I want to
Hello.
know that I have enjoyed
Hello.
speaking to you,
Hello.
and I have enjoyed the
Hello.
discussion.
Yes, we have
Hello.
Devavrat Verma. He wants to speak something.
Thank you, sir. Very much, sir. Our the thinking is very inspiring, sir. I am agree.
You
Hello.
agree with me? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Over
Thank you,
to
everybody.
over to Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana sir for the final comments and close down of this webinar. Over to Professor Maharana.
Kailash ଅଛି ସେଠି କହ Kailash କହ ସକାଳ.
Well, he's not responding. Probably he's not there. So one thing is left: the proposing the vote of thanks. Okay, it was really a very good lecture this evening. It's a good evening for all of us, because we came across a new concept and understanding of a new concept and thinking of life in a new way, not thinking about the future life and not also pondering about the past issues and restricting ourselves to this life. And more importantly, I think we should restrict even to the present moment. This life is well, we should respect to this life, but at the same time, I feel let us restrict ourselves to the present moment, because the present moment is so important. It has implications in this life. So the present, whatever the present situation may be, whatever the present may be, the present is more important in this one. So thank you, sir, for your very nice lecture, and definitely this lecture will arouse new waves in the minds of the young scholars and senior professors and all those intellectuals who have interest in this area. And sir, really grateful to you, sir, and we think of another good lecture of this sort from you, sir, in future from the platform of Philosophy Family. Thank you very much, sir, for the lecture. I also thank Pramod Das, sir, for his synopsis of the talk of Professor Mahapatra. I also thank Professor Dhaneshwar Sahu, sir, Professor Ranjit Ghosh, sir, Professor Sachindra Raula, sir, and Sravani Mishra and all others who took part in the interaction session and made this webinar a complete one. So that's how it is not restricted to the lecture part. It has opened to, it has been very nicely been taken for discussion. Many good ideas have flowed in. So this way, I think this webinar is a successful one. So I thank all the participants for being a part of this webinar, and I request all of them to be connected with Philosophy Family and make its activities successful. I also thank Professor Roma Chakravarti. I see a new entrant this evening. Well, he's not there now, but I should thank her also because she has made some observations in support of Professor Mahapatra. They are also very much valuable and they have added value to this webinar. So at the last, I should thank everybody for being connected with Philosophy Family and making this webinar a successful one. Thank you, everybody. With these words, also thank Dr. Kailash Chandra Maharana for introducing the guest and coordinating this event. So, one thing let me say, we have made a small group called Philosophy Family with the initiative of Pramod Das, and we have been working on it to improve it to greater heights with the blessings of the senior professors and all those interested in this family. We are trying to do more and more activities. We seek the blessings of all of you. Thank you, everybody, for making this evening so fruitful. Thank you, everyone. And namaskar.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello.
Now the call is Mana, sir.
Hello. Thanks so much, Dr. Rao, for nicely moderating the session. Actually, this session has widened our way of looking at the life, to live a life of optimism and to live a moral and a life of meaningfulness. Actually, I again express my deep sense of gratitude to our teacher, Professor K.K. Mahapatra, and all the viewers connected to this webinar. Thanks so much. And over to Professor Pramod Kumar Das for closing the meeting.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.